Welcome, everyone, to the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. My name is Kevin. I'll be your captain. This is Union Federation episode 216, the Orville crew profile. We'll be discussing Commander Kelly Grayson this week, played by Adrianne Palicki. Excited about that. This is Union Federation here on the Fandom Podcast Network, and feel free to hit our QR code there. It takes us straight to the website. Support us there. We'd appreciate that. And of course, you can find these podcasts also on the BQN, discussing the Orville. This is a limited 10-episode series discussing the Orville and their main crew profile and the crew members. Make sure you check out our previous episodes. We'll tell you about that in a second. But I want to welcome to the bridge, of course, with us as usual, is our first officer and counselor and founder of the BQN, Miss Amy Nelson. What's going on?
Well, hello. Nice to be here.
All right, cool. This has been good. Just been a fun series. A lot of fun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's been really fun, like watching the shows that we are assigned and seeing what we discussed with previous characters.
Yes. Yeah, especially like some of the B plots and stuff like that. Yeah, it's been interesting. Back with us is our special guest ambassador, Alyssa Courtright. Welcome, Alyssa. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me back. I really had fun last time.
I'm excited to have you. And I know you're excited to be on this particular episode as well. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Now, Kyle, who's usually with us, our co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network. But guess what, guys? He's stuck on planet Taxia. And if you know Kyle, he's in the tax business, and he's a little busy right now in the month of April, about to start. So hopefully he'll join us next week. And right now he's just trying to stay afloat. So as I mentioned earlier, we are discussing Kelly Grayson, Adrianne Palicki here. But we did want to tease before we go into that some stuff that has been on the Union Federation. Of course, we have been doing this series, this 10-part episode series, discussing all of the main crew members. And if you're watching the YouTube channel here, you'll see we've gotten a lot covered here. Of course, Alara Katan was our first one we did. Talakiali, Lieutenant Commander John Lamar. We did Gordon Lemoy, Commander Bordas, Dr. Claire Finn. And last week we did Isaac. And this week, of course, we're doing Kelly Grayson. The next show, of course, will be discussing Captain Ed Mercer. And the final show is going to be an extra fun one as well. We're going to be talking about the special guest stars, reoccurring guest stars, and the Star Trek alumni that, as we know here as Star Trek fans, was a lot of fun to see on the Orville. So, and also recently we did a reaction to Star Trek Section 31, the movie. And we also, last year, we did a fun trek down season 5, the final season of Star Trek Lower Decks. And earlier we did all of the 2-part episodes for Star Trek The Next Generation, which was a lot of fun. Of course, we're discussing the Orville and Star Trek here in the Union Federation, but this time it's the Orville. And let's get into our first Orville shuttle mission. All right, we are discussing, of course, a crew member, Commander Kelly Grayson. And we did want to let people know that the episodes that we are going to highlight and talk about are Season 2, Episode 13, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. We're also going to be discussing Season 3, Episode 5, Tale of Two Topas. And our honorable mention this week will be Mad Idolatry, which was Season 1, Episode 12. And we're going to dive a little bit more into Kelly Grayson here, guys. And so Kelly Grayson is a commander and first officer aboard the USS Orville. Unlike most of the crew who served under the Orville's previous captain, Kelly personally requested to serve as Ed Mercer's first officer. Previously served aboard a different unidentified ship. Kelly Grayson was born on Earth on November 2nd in the 2380s or earlier 2390s, if we don't know for sure. She grew up in the city of Toledo and spent time at her family's ranch in rural Montana. She later recalled looking at the stars at night on the ranch, fascinated that each star had its own planet and some of them had life of its own. Her most important goals in life were to fall in love, to captain her own ship, and to, quote, help make the galaxy a better place. As a child, Kelly took piano lessons because she was told that she, quote, had the hands for it, but quit after 3 lessons. Had the hands she counted, but not the talent. She also said, as a kid, I was usually the one to volunteer to watch younger kids on field trip or be a captain of the soccer team. So looking back, I guess it was inevitable that I decided to pursue command. Kelly Grayson came from a long line of Union officers. Her father served with the Union. She followed in his footsteps. She enrolled at Union Point, where she took courses in diplomacy and a year of interplanetary law. Grayson recounted that her diplomacy professor, Professor Fincher, had falsely told others that she wanted to hook up with him, and enraged, she had pushed him into a pool. Kelly recalled of her time at Union Point, quote, I used to drink at night and then report for duty the next morning. In one incident, Kelly slid down the main conduit in her underwear as the party game with other cadets, but was caught by her commanding officer. Staff made Kelly clean toilets as punishment. Afterwards, Kelly served as science officer in the Planetary Union, first as an ensign and then as a lieutenant in 2413. Let's go ahead and start our opening character discussion on Commander Kelly Grayson. Alyssa, I want to start with you. You're our guest. I know you were looking forward to this one because I think she's one of your favorite characters.
Yes, she is for sure.
So yeah, give me an opening response to Kelly. What do you think of her?
Yeah, well, she's one of my favorite fictional characters ever. She's definitely a character that I connect with personally as somebody who has been in different positions of leadership over the course of my life so far, and also somebody who's guided by her emotions a lot. She goes on impulse quite a bit, and sometimes she's right, sometimes she's not. But she always tries to fix whatever she does. She goes with her heart. She always looks out for people, looks out for others. And yeah, I find a lot of the time throughout the show, her reactions to things are very similar to what I feel like my reactions would be. So I always find myself generally agreeing with whatever her points are for whatever the debate or the issue of that episode is.
Good points. Amy, I want to get your initial thoughts on Commander Kelly Grayson. Now, we've podcasted about the Orville, especially when they were releasing new episodes. I always went under the impression, I've never asked you straight out, but I've always been under the impression she was one of your favorite characters.
Yeah, she really is. She's so well written. And I think, because I was thinking about this last night in preparation for this, when we all know that Roddenberry, when he started Next Gen, or Star Trek, he's like, no conflict, no conflict. We need our characters to get along. Conflict is out there. And I feel with Grayson, she is written in the most ideal way. She may have flaws, like she cheated on Ed, but that was worked through. Ed recognized his issues, and it was sort of spun as not a good thing, but something that got worked out on that matriarchal planet. And so she's got all the good common sense, natural, friendly, doors open, but strict and keeping the crew at bay, but yet still has good friendships. Like, the ideal is Kelly. And I think that's very important to have in a show, sort of as the rock. Because Captain Ed, he can be out there. She's the foundation, I feel, this tent pole of the show.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, it's interesting. I've been a big fan of Adrianne ever since Friday Night Lights. She was a reoccurring character, and it was a really good drama series. Even if you're not a fan of football, which it was about high school football in Texas, which is like a religion down there. She was fantastic, and she had some fantastic story arcs, and I've always been a big fan of hers since then. And I've seen her in several movies I'm a fan of hers in. This is my favorite role that she's ever done, though. And there's reasons for that. The leadership that she shows. But one of the things that I love about the Orville, I know we've talked about this before, Amy, where obviously you and I are big Star Trek fans, specifically Star Trek Next Generation fans. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of comparisons. We know Seth MacFarlane is a huge Star Trek fan. And he's showcased that many, many times. And
Yeah.
there's been a lot of these stories that have mirrored some stuff in Next Gen.
Mhm.
We've even podcasted about the similarities of some Star Trek Next Gen episodes with the earlier seasons of
Orville.
the Orville. But one of the things that I love about the Orville that Star Trek really doesn't do, and I think it's by reason, is that when it comes to, and I'm going to compare Next Gen more specifically, was that some of the things that they casually talk about compared to what the Orville talk about is a little kind of stilted. It's a kind of reserve, but I feel in a way Orville feels more realistic about how the crew member talks and hangs out with each other because it's how we would do it. And I don't see us 400 years in the future still not doing what Next Generation did. We would do what Orville does. You have friends, you have buddies. Yes, you go party and you drink, but then you're serious, you show up for work. I don't see that ever changing. As humans, we need to hang around with each other more. And the reason why I bring all that up is I felt Kelly's character is one of those people that knows how to do both. She knows how to do command. She knows how to command others. She knows how to mentor others, but she knows how to relax and hang out and do the girl talk, and, one of my favorite lines that she does where I think it is when she's with the girls and they're talking about something with Isaac and Claire, I think. And Ed comes in while they're all drinking and they're all, well, what do you think? Ed goes, well, I think you should ask your kids. And they all look at each go and she goes, all right, great advice. Go away, sober man. One of my favorite lines. I love that. But that type of camaraderie and that type of reaction is something that she has done really well throughout the entire series. And that's why I love her character so much. So,
Yeah. Good
point.
Well,
Alyssa is a big fan. We know this because she said so. But Alyssa, you've done some cosplay recently and you sent us some pictures of your Orville cosplay. And these are awesome. I was wondering if you could talk about these here.
Gosh.
Thank you. I'm glad you like them. So the first one, whenever I go to a convention that has a Star Trek fan group, I try and see if they have a photo op, and usually they bring a captain's chair. So I take a picture in the chair, and I think this is my favorite of the photos in the chair. And then the other one is really special because this past February, I went to MegaCon in Orlando. And when I was there, I stayed at the new Stella Nova Resort Hotel, which is affiliated with Universal's new Epic Universe that's opening up. And it is entirely space themed. If you look
so
up pictures
cool.
of it, it's like you're on a starship. It's amazing. The murals on the walls throughout the resort are actual pictures that were sent back by NASA. And this hallway is special. It's only on one of the floors. It has to do with the fact that they couldn't, for whatever reason, something to do with how the place was built, but they couldn't have rooms in a certain section of one of the hallways. And so they built that hallway and it looks like stars twinkling. And
what's the name of that? What's the name of that resort again?
It's Stella Nova Resort, and
Stella
it's
Nova.
really, really cool. I have more pictures on my Instagram from it, but it was such an amazing place to go see. And even the inside of the room, it looks like a starship quarters. I couldn't believe they actually built it, and it was so cool to get to stay there. That's another picture from MegaCon. They had a photo background, and yeah, my friend got me to pose, so that was a lot of fun.
That is so cool.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, make sure you check out the video on YouTube for Fandom Podcast Network, and you can see Alyssa posing here with a looks like an Orville blaster there, so that's pretty cool.
That was a lot of fun.
I have more pictures I'll share, but I'm going to wait till the last episode of this series. So yeah, we are discussing Kelly Grayson, played by Adrianne Palicki here, episode 216, Union Federation. And speaking of cosplay, and who's that admiral there with the bleach blonde hair? What the heck? Let's go ahead and get into the Admiral's Log episode synopsis. Amy, go ahead and hit us up with the first episode of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Which there is a Star Trek Strange New World episode name, same name, so don't be confused. We are talking the Orville. This episode is season 2, episode 13, and Kelly and Ed reminisce about their first date 7 years earlier. Ed is open to reconciling, but Kelly prefers their current relationship. Meanwhile, Isaac experiments with a neurology-based time travel device. Kelly is near the device as the Orville passes through a gravitational wave, and send a Kelly from 7 years in the past is transported to the present. Lamar is unable to determine how the younger Kelly can be returned to her own time. Lieutenant Kelly Grayson joins the crew, but has difficulty adjusting to her new life. Gradually, she makes friends, but Commander Grayson worries that her younger self's fraternization with the crew undermines her own authority. Lieutenant Grayson tells her older self that she failed to achieve her life goals. Lieutenant Grayson and Ed become romantically involved, but Ed ultimately realizes their differing ages makes them incompatible. He values his and Commander Grayson's mutual maturity and personal growth. When Kalon vessels pursue the Orville, Lieutenant Grayson devises a successful plan to conceal the ship inside a planetary ice ring. The two Kellys form mutual respect. Meanwhile, Lamar and Isaac discover a way to return Lieutenant Grayson to the past. After undergoing a voluntary memory wipe to protect the timeline, Kelly awakens 7 years earlier inside her apartment. However, the memory wipe has failed. When the eager, younger Ed calls following their first date to ask her out again, she declines, saying it will not work out.
Wonder if that changes things.
Yeah.
Go ahead and hit us with some production notes that we have there.
Yeah. So Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow was written by co-executive producer Janet Lynn, directed by Gary Rake, and scored by John Debney. It is the first episode not to feature the standard opening credits and theme music by Bruce Broughton, which were removed due to time constraints. Oh, that's interesting. Now, the title of the episode probably derives from a play by William Shakespeare. Well, it does, in which the Macbeth soliloquies, the titular Macbeth soliloquies, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, creeps in this petty pace from day to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. The episode was warmly received by general audiences and professional critics alike, noting in particular actress Adrianne Palicki's superb and nuanced performance juggling both younger and older Kelly Grayson. Palicki later said that the episode was the hardest acting experience of her life. Now, Adrianne Palicki said that this episode and The Road Not Taken together were the hardest acting experiences of her life. And actress Michelle Boyd played Kelly's body double on camera. Hair and makeup teams stood by as Palicki acted as one character, then dress her as an alternate character and reshoot the scene. Palicki later said of this experience, I had to change back and forth per shot into 2 different characters. So I had to know the entire script by heart. There was so much to that was challenging. And that's what makes me better. That's what makes me strive. Palicki gave the junior Kelly a higher voice and a different gait.
Fascinating. A couple of quick things here. So this does have a second part to this story, but what I love about this episode is that it's kind of self-contained, even though it leaves a little question at the end. Of course, if you watch the following episode, you see what happens with that change. And there's a really subtle scene where the two are sitting next to each other, and then you see Commander Grayson put her hand on the arm of the Lieutenant Grayson, and it was a very cool scene to do, because back in the old days when you had two people, one person playing two people, you could tell that there was an obvious line that and had to work off that stuff. But I thought the transitions were done really, really well. I wanted to get into some trivia here, because obviously the first one has a lot to do about Kelly's musical taste, and I thought that you would start that one there, Amy.
All right. Well, in Kelly's apartment 7 years ago, the picture hanging on the wall is the album cover of Escape by Journey. Awesome.
Well, she sings a Journey song in that one episode.
Right.
So we know that she's a Journey fan. And I think Ed also mentions that he's a Journey fan when she's dating Cassius. I remember
Cassius.
that. Yeah, like I'm there. So, all right. Here is the second bit of trivia here for this episode. This is the first time that an Orville regular goes time traveling. Previously, the crew met a time traveler in Priya 2007 and recreated history on this simulator on numerous occasions. And I know you'll like this one, Amy. Hit us with the last bit of trivia for this episode.
Well, this episode shares several similarities with Star Trek's Next Generation Second Chances, which aired in 1993, where William Riker encounters a transporter duplicate of himself. Sound familiar? In both episodes, the ship's first officer encounters a less mature duplicate of themselves and encounters friction when the duplicate is placed under their command. Yeah, see, and there's a little romance that got stirred up, just
Yeah, it
like
did.
Orville.
Similarities there for sure. Notable
Yeah.
guest stars we have here. Of course, we have Yaphet, voiced by Norm Macdonald. And we had Will Sasso, who plays Muska, the very cool, interesting waiter. So yeah, there you go. And I remember Will Sasso. If you guys ever watched Mad TV on Fox many, many years ago, it was their version of Saturday Night Live through the 90s and early 2000, if I remember correctly. And Sasso was really funny. Let's go ahead and get start our opening episode discussion on tomorrow, and tomorrow. And why we chose this as a Kelly episode. Alyssa, I want to start with you because I know you probably guessed this is one of the episodes that we were going to talk about, as you talked about before.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you had said initially that, you're going to do 2 or 3 episodes per character, I thought immediately, well, they have to do this one for Kelly because it's a pretty good character exploration episode for her, both her current self and you can see a little bit of what she was like 7 years ago when she was just kind of starting her career as a Union officer, like not an ensign, but before she was a commander. And so you get to see like what her goals were, what she, wanted for herself. And then she kind of gets to explore, did she achieve those goals? Did she maybe achieve them in a different way than she had initially hoped? And so, yeah, I think it's a good, it kind of makes you think, what would you say to your past self if you saw yourself from 7 years ago? Would you have fulfilled everything that you wanted for yourself? Probably not. Would they be happy with what your life is? Would they be disappointed? And she kind of has to reconcile that within herself. Is she content with what her life is? And is there something that she would like to change about it? Which is basically what Claire tells her. She says that, maybe her goals changed or maybe she achieved them, but not in the way that she had hoped. So yeah, I think it's an interesting episode in that way. You kind of have your past and present self having a dialogue with each other, which is really interesting.
Well said. Amy, I don't know about you, but 7 years ago for me felt like yesterday or a few months ago. It's just, it's weird that 7 years can mean an eternity for some people. But let me get your opening thoughts about the episode of tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
This is such a fun mind experiment of, your past and where you are and the process of how you got there. Because when you've got these goals, and I so related this because I was living in Utah, wanting to be in the church and be this amazing wife. And that was my goal, to get married, be this teacher. Well, I did do that. But and then things shifted and changed and life happened and you make adjustments that are right at the time. And then your goals adapt. I mean, it has to. If your goals aren't adapting, I sort of worry because life happens and you've got to change. And so I like the older Kelly's flexibility. She had a hard time, especially when younger Kelly was like, you didn't accomplish anything I wanted. But it's like, yeah, but look at what I did. And I like that spin on it and just sort of that whole counseling of how are you wrapping your head around, are you a success or are you a failure?
It's interesting. I was I was thinking about Ed during this episode when I was rewatching it again, and I'm like, are you really gonna try to strike up a relationship with the younger Kelly when your ex-wife Kelly's right there?
Right there.
And it reminded me of that scene in Star Trek Next Generation. And to me, there's a bro code when it comes to that you don't do. You don't date, your friend's sister, blah blah blah, your girlfriend's sister, whatever. I feel like that falls underneath that code. It's just like you just don't go there. But I know why it was done. Because that, it's entertaining, it's funny as well, and but it's a character development moment for Ed as well. But when it comes to Adrianne in this episode, man, I can see why this was difficult, and it was fascinating to see it just start from the beginning, and then like, whoa, oh wow, younger Kelly here. This is really, really cool. And it's interesting to see her kind of change up and transform into her younger self with a little bit different hairstyle, of course, with that wig. I thought the interesting part of this episode too is when Lieutenant Kelly is hanging out with the people off duty and just, chatting, and she's telling all these embarrassing stories. And then you see like Commander Kelly going, oh God, no, we need to talk, and how she gives her a teachable moment going, there's certain lines you don't cross when you're the commander and stuff. And you got to keep a certain distance a little bit, because you have to, you don't want to lose that commanding respect that she has and stuff. Another scene I thought was funny too is when Ed starts to realize dating the younger Kelly isn't a great idea, when he realizes that, oh no, this is club party version, and I'm too old for that. I can relate to that, which I thought was kind of funny. But the thing that I love about the Orville too, that I think is really funny, is I love that the Orville can show that the crew in emergency can return to their bridge in their casual wear or space pajamas, because they know how important it is to get up to the bridge and not change. Just little things like that was a nice little touch. So I thought that was cool. So yeah.
Yeah. You hit on a point talking about when younger Kelly was trying to make her own friends, and they're hanging out with the crew, and she's telling her stories. They are justifiably, those are her stories. And what we learn about her, I mean, having fun, still within the framework of, okay, I'm at Academy, Orville Academy. I don't know what's it called. Union Academy. And still trying to push the envelope, have fun, still a little immature. We get that from younger Kelly. And I just wonder, like, how would you talk to your younger self if they're trying to make their own life? And it's like, well, those are my stories. No, those are my stories. Like, oh, that's a tough one to come across. I was really questioning.
How would you do that, Alyssa? Would you do it? I mean, how would you approach your younger self of 7 years?
Would
I
you
don't
tell her,
know.
no, you can't tell those stories?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that the way that Kelly approached it was probably the only way that she had to, because she is the commander of this starship and she does need these people to respect her. I mean, but on the other hand, everybody already knows everybody's dirt on this ship. It's very small. There are probably so many stories about Kelly and Ed that the whole crew knows already. So maybe she's just trying to preserve whatever's left of her dignity at this point. But yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, I don't know. I would probably handle it somewhat like that, where can you please not tell that to people who probably should not be hearing that. But yeah, I don't know.
And then I have another question. Did you imagine her youth like what was described, or did you picture her like in the books? Or, I mean, was it fitting that she was just, her younger self had these activities, I guess is my question.
Party girl.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised, because she's still a little bit of a party girl now. And even she and Ed make reference to times when they were married and they went out and partied. So it's not, I don't think that's a huge shock. But at the same time, though, we know that she had to have done very well. And I'm sure that she had expectations to live up to, because her family were in the fleet. sounds like her father was an admiral. She followed in his footsteps. All the admirals know her. She knows Admiral Halsey. So I'm sure she still had a sense of, I need to make sure I don't mess up too bad.
Yeah, I forgot that.
What I find interesting about this episode is it kind of makes you look at yourself and what would you do if you're in a similar situation. But I was just tell myself right now, what would happen 7 years ago compared to right now for me? And I'm saying I wouldn't change much. I mean, I could say to my younger self, hey, you're going to have this pandemic that's going to keep you away from your future wife for 2.5 years as she's stuck in Australia and you're stuck in the States. So you're going to have to delay your wedding. But then I'm like, I don't know if I would change anything because you got to see our wedding in Las Vegas, Amy. You know, you were there, you know?
Yes,
and that was a lot of fun, you know, and the way that we celebrated that. So, but I would definitely go back to like 27-year-old Kevin and tell 20-year-old Kevin a few things, like, you know.
Exactly. That's why, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it works really well with this 30 and 35-year-old demographic because 7 years ago from 35, that's a huge difference. Now, 7 years ago from a 50-year-old, I'm doing the exact same thing. Like life is on autopilot.
Still going to bed at 8 or 9, getting up at early in the morning.
Nothing's going to change. But
I think 7 years. I think you're right. I think it depends on probably the person and whatever happens in the past 7 years. I think for Kelly, she's talking about being a lieutenant. She's a commander by this point, so it's probably around the time that maybe her ascent kind of started happening. So probably a lot has happened for her in those past 7 years. I know for me, 7 years ago, I was just starting college. So a lot has happened for me in the past 7 years. So I feel like I kind of see a parallel where if I were to see my past self from 7 years ago, I might have maybe not identical experiences, but similar experiences questioning, you know, myself and did I accomplish what I set out to do?
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get into the next Admiral's Log episode of A Tale of Two Topas. This is the second episode that we have chosen for Commander Grayson. And Amy, go ahead and get us started with the episode synopsis there.
All right. This also is season 3, episode 5. So Kelly mentors Topa to help him prepare for the Union Point entrance exam. Topa confides in Kelly that he feels something is wrong with him. Kelly feels that Bortus and Clyden should tell Topa that he was born female. Clyden steadfastly refuses and forbids Topa to continue training with Kelly, which leads to Topa having suicidal thoughts. Both Kelly and Bortus's actions lead Topa to the truth of his origins. Topa wants to be female and asks Claire to reverse the gender reassignment surgery. Clyden protests and threatens to leave Bortus, but Bortus consents. However, the Admiralty refuses to allow the surgery because it would cause Mockless to leave the Union, making them vulnerable to the Kaelon. Dr. Finn volunteers to resign so she can perform the procedure without causing an interstellar incident. Isaac instead volunteers to perform the procedure as he is not officially a Union officer. To maintain plausible deniability, Ed orders Isaac not to perform it, then arranges a concert for the crew to give Isaac time for the procedure. Despite Clyden's attempt to stop the surgery, it is successful, and Topa is restored to female form. Clyden furiously renounces his ties with Bortus and Topa, but Bortus reaffirms his love for his daughter, and Kelly resumes mentoring her.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get into some Orville trivia for this episode, and I'll start with the first one here. Among the artifacts brought into the Orville from the burial chamber is a pair of Batman's scalped bracers, similar to the ones worn in Batman Begins in 2005. Those are things that you wear around your forearm, like gauntlets. And I thought that was a cool little shout out there. They look exactly like it. If you're watching the YouTube video, you'll see the similarities there. So, yeah.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah. Amy, go ahead and hit us with the for number 2 and 3.
I was wondering about this. So, Ty Finn, who's played Kai Werner.
Kai Werner.
Warner, began studying classical piano as part of his preparation for season 2 of the show. And in this episode, all the piano playing was done by the actor without any doubles or professional stand-ins. How amazing is that?
That's really
cool. That's commitment to a thing there. I hope he's still playing. That's really cool.
He talented. Wow.
All right, go ahead and hit us with the last bit of trivia for this episode.
All right. Imani Pullum becomes at least the third actor to portray the character of Topa. Topa was previously played by Blesson Yates and at least one unknown baby.
Yeah, I couldn't get the name on that baby. Our notable guest stars here, we got a few here. Of course, we've got Chad L. Coleman as Clyden, Andy Miller as Ensign Bobilar, who had to be asked to be put on pants.
Mhm.
Andy Chapman played Admiral Howland, and Antonio D. Charity played Advocate Kagas there. And then, of course, we had Imani Pullman as Topa in this episode as well, which I thought was a really, really good performance by her.
So
yes.
Imani played both Topas at the beginning and the end?
Yes, and a little bit of trivia too that I learned was that they changed her voice. They modulated it when she was playing the boy part or the boy Topa in the beginning to make it sound more male. So I did learn about that. Now, I want to mention, I just want to ask you guys real quick. The honorable mention was season 1, episode 12, Mad Idolatry. The crew crash land on a planet from another universe. Ed and Kelly considered getting back together. And this is the one where they come across that weird planet that phases every 11 days, and then so much time passes in between that time, like hundreds of years, 400 years, I think it is. It's really weird.
400, yeah.
And this is where Kelly accidentally does something. She's trying to help a little girl, and the cult of Kelly is started on this planet. And what's really funny is this comes back later in season 3, which is fascinating. They kept this
in
thing
this
going
episode.
here. Yes, but
Tell It to Topas.
Yeah, but there was I think it was the episode where they go to that planet and they have to go through all those weird, scary things, and then that one girl pops up and she's like gleaming, whatever it is. She mentions that she's from that planet. If I remember correctly, I'm forgetting the name of the episode, but that's the one where Gordon gets beat up by bullies at the school, and then there's like other weird stuff going on. Not one of my favorite episodes, but the woman that shows up because she's trying to figure out, because their culture has advanced so much that they have gained this sort of immortality, and they've kind of grown bored of it. And so they were kind of using the Orville crew to kind of see how they would handle what like death-defying situations or death situations, stuff like that. I can't remember the episodes. Forgive me there. Do you guys remember the episode I'm talking about?
I think it was Mortality Paradox, but I
yes,
I watched
that's
I was showing my dad.
Yeah, she that being that shows up in the end mentions that she's from this planet, the one that does the changing and stuff like that. So Kelly, obviously, I want to get your guys' thought on this episode, Alyssa.
Which one? This one?
This one here, the honorable mention, Mad Idolatry.
Yeah, it's definitely like, it's kind of something that is typical for Kelly to do something on impulse where she wants to help a child. She's done this like throughout the entire show, that she loves kids and she goes out of her way to help kids from the very beginning. So she's trying to help a kid and breaks the Prime Directive. I don't know what they call it in the Orville, but breaks their law or whatever, and then accidentally starts a religion and then ends up seeing it and going, oh no, what did I do? I did not mean to do that. And has major repercussions down the line for that planet and then for them later, because as you said, they run into somebody from that planet. And I think they went after them because they're like, oh, as good a ship as any other, but Kelly's here, so let's go mess with them. So but even just like seeing her reactions throughout that episode, you can tell that she is very taken aback by what she's done. She's not happy about it at all. Like, there maybe in some other show, there might be a character to be like, oh, cool, this whole planet is worshiping me. She does not think it's cool at all. She knows she messed up. She's trying to fix it. She offers to basically die down there to get them to realize that she is not who they think she is. But yeah, definitely a mistake that I think haunts her for the rest of the show, because as you mentioned, Clyden even brings that up to her as something that he knows is a sore spot with her.
And that was the episode. This is the episode 2 where Isaac volunteers to fix things and spend 400 years on this planet, which is 11 days for the Orville while they're orbiting in space. So, Amy, what are your quick thoughts on Mad Idolatry?
Yeah, this really is a fun episode, and one that you can explore what a small mistake, or that little drop in the ripples that go out. And yeah, you can see Kelly's humility. She definitely, I mean, I don't know anyone who okay. But she's so humble because she's like, there is no reason why anyone would be worshiping me, and how can I fix this, and let's get this back to the normal order. And she knows that she disturbed this entire civilization right now. I mean, that is a heavy thing to carry. And yeah, so when Clyden brings it up, you can see that look in her face. It's just like, why would you say that? Because there was no intent. She only had a good heart, but man, things went sideways with that.
I want that Kelly statue. That'd be so cool to have.
Yeah.
And Alyssa, I want to challenge you to work on that new cosplay. I want you to dress yourself up as Kelly's statue, and then like you go to like a convention and you just kind of stand there like this,
Heck yeah.
And then move when people think it's an actual statue.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into the main episode we're going to discuss here is A Tale of Two Topas. Now, I wanted to mention, obviously, this is a great story all around, and this is, of course, centered around Topa herself. But this, I wanted to bring this to the table, and I know, Amy, when you and I were discussing the episodes, we're like, yeah, this one has to be done because this is such a great Kelly episode, because Kelly becomes a mentor. Kelly's the main reason why this, kind of this transition finally happens. It's a really important story for her. And so I wanted you, Amy, to kind of start us off here about your thoughts on Tale of Two Topas.
I feel, did exactly the right thing at the right time. She definitely had issues with Topa getting the gender reassignment surgery, but it's not her child. Respecting Clyden and Bortus. But she wasn't happy about it. But well, now fast forward, Topa is much older, questioning, not happy, feeling like it's not fitting in. And now it's becoming like important for Topa and his progression, and who. Oh, now I don't know which pronouns to say, which she's going to, become. And yeah, when Topa asks Isaac and Isaac reports it to Kelly, that's right then and there, the exact time. And I, as a school counselor, it's suicide risk assessment. We are trained through that. And when there's triggering words, we need to be notified and we have to go through it. And It doesn't matter what the parents think, because right now the child is important. And I absolutely love that Kelly did this, and Clyden be damned. That's what it comes down to, because Topa's life right now is in serious danger. And so for Kelly to step up, to have the courage, and Clyden, he's not nice, loud, big, untrained. So thankfully Kelly has training, but very formidable. And so for her to do this and also support Bortus, it's hugely important, which I think you can see in later episodes. Their friendship becomes very, very strong. And this is just another reason why it is, because she takes the courageous stand and to support Topa no matter what.
That's a great point. Alyssa, your thoughts on Tale of Two Topas?
This episode is really, really good, really well made. It could be a movie. It basically is. But Yeah, I like watching the relationship between Kelly and Topa because Kelly is clearly somebody that Topa looks up to and trusts throughout the entire show, which is great to see because Kelly has been fighting for Topa since she was born, as we saw at the beginning, and Topa may not necessarily know about that yet, but probably will soon. And yeah, it's cool that Topa says that she can go to Kelly, that she trusts her and doesn't. She said like she respects Ed and she respects the others, but Kelly's somebody that she has a connection with. And that connection has been there since the beginning of Topa's life. So I think that's really cool to see how that plays out. And yeah, also like now as a teacher, like watching the moments where Topa says, I'd like to do what Commander Grayson does. I've had kids say, I'd like to do what you do. And that feels really good. So I can imagine that in that moment, Kelly probably felt, something really, really good. And like, oh, I did do something good with my life, which she was questioning in the last episode that we talked about. So yeah, it's cool that she's there for Topa and then everybody comes together to support Topa. But yes, it's a really good Kelly episode. And she's not afraid to stand up against Clyden or anybody else who she knows is wrong. So I do like that about Kelly, that she knows what's right, what her conscience tells her to do, and she sticks with it.
Adrianne's performance in this episode was extraordinary, especially certain scenes where you can see like she's almost going to break a little bit. She's feeling the pain for this girl that wants to go through this, and I'm just glad that she was an advocate for Topa, because I feel like ever since a tale about a girl, that third episode that kind of really changed our opinion on the Orville, that they can get serious about serious topics. You could tell Bortus throughout the series up until this episode 2 was like, he wasn't quite settled and happy about the situation, but he wanted to keep, he wanted to keep the family together. He wanted to keep things status quo, and but he was always supportive of Topa, whether he was obviously male or female. And when I tried to think about how Clyden responded, I can only imagine. Obviously it was really easy to hate him during this run here, and that's a discussion. We're going to have a Clyden discussion on the last episode of this series, because I have certain questions that I want to ask about how he was played. And Kyle's always been an advocate for Chad L. Coleman's performance as him as well, because he's done a really, really good job performing as this character that's not very likable. And I'm trying to look on the flip side of things with this episode. Like, why is he so adamant about thinking that as Topa becoming a girl again, how this is going to be so horrendous in the eyes of their peers back on Mockless? And I'm wondering, obviously we know that Clyden was born female, and I'm like, did he go through some really horrible shit in order to be this afraid? Because he's still showing these closed-minded tendencies as well. He's not very open-minded at all, and we get into that a little bit later with the relationship, and then and then he does come back. But as for Topa, I just think it was a really nice story for this character to go through, and Imani played it wonderfully. And it was just great to see Kelly become a mentor for someone and stick up for them, and just play this part really, really, really well. And it was nice to see Isaac step up as well to perform the situation, or perform the procedure, and kind of go through that loophole, and seeing Kelly and Ed being dressed down by the Admiral, and Admiral had to do her job and give them a bunch of crap for it, but deep down you could probably tell the Admiral was like, I feel for this kid. It was nice that she asked about Topa. But overall, I thought it was a great Kelly episode, and it was one of the reasons why we wanted to choose this, because Adrianne was just phenomenal in there. Anyone else have any other comments on this episode? Amy?
Yeah, I want to add on to what you're saying about the Admiral. Yeah, what the Admiral did was wrong. I feel, my opinion. This is a child, and it goes back to the Dolly Parton episode with Havina of do the right thing now and let everything else, it's gonna work out, but it's gonna work out best when you do the right thing now. Topa getting that surgery was the right thing. That is insanity to place all of that on Topa's shoulders and saying, oh, you can't have that surgery because of that.
Right,
Like,
right.
that is so unfair. And grown adults should be fighting to keep things fair, not keep them unfair. And then for her to turn around at the last minute and pretend, and make an inquiry as if you care about this child? No,
You don't think she really cared?
If you cared, then you wouldn't have supported. You would have fought for Topa just like Kelly was doing and going up the chain.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think deep down inside she did care, because there's and they call out, and I remember forgetting what episode, but Ed saying we're always breaking our backs to not annoy or hurt or hurt
Yes.
the Mocklins, because the alliance is so important with them because of their weapon technology and stuff like that. And I feel like all the admirals are under that pressure of let's not upset them and blah, 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 blah. And the Orville crew is always calling them out on it. And I remember even Halsey says, watch your tone, and it's like, I see where you're going at that, but I'm sure Admiral Halsey hears it from someone else saying, oh, they disobeyed your orders. What did you do about it? And they're far removed from the personal side of this. So they're doing their job as an admiral, and it sucks. But yeah, I see where you're coming from, though, Amy. You got any thoughts on that, Alyssa?
I think they're weighing the needs of the many versus the needs of the one. And they've done this, like you said, they've done this the whole show. They've said, oh, we need the Mocklin Alliance, so we can't do what we can't recognize the female colony as an independent state, even though it would help them out. We have to make it so that they can't bring babies over if the parents don't want the surgery done. So they are definitely caving on morals to preserve this alliance. And yeah, I mean, it's things that has happened throughout history where countries will have alliances and they don't want to make the other one mad, so they'll compromise on something. Right. And even if it's morally wrong. So yeah, I think that's what they're doing here and that they've done throughout the show. And then eventually we see what their line is, that finally when the Mocklins cross it, that's when they say that's enough. But that hasn't happened yet.
Right.
Yeah. Good points, guys.
Good point.
To lighten things up a little bit, I had to bring this to the table here. Can we just briefly talk about that treasure room that we see in the beginning of the episode? I was getting Indiana Jones National Treasure mummy vibes, especially with the booby traps that Isaac in a funny moment had to trigger. There's a lot of stuff in this thing, and I'm really kind of surprised this wasn't like a B plot. I kind of want to see this come out later. I mean, look at that treasure room. It is enormous. How do you not make a story about that alone?
Yes.
Kind of a bummer that they did nothing with it. Like I was showing, my dad and brother are watching the Orville. I'm introducing it to them, and my sisters watched it, and we were watching this episode, and I whispered to my sister who's seen it before, I can't believe that like this, they spent all this on the effects and building up this whole scene for there to be nothing with it. It's just like there.
Yeah. I mean, okay, fine. You brought up some Batman gauntlets and a few other things, but I don't know. I'm looking at this going billions worth of treasure. Of course, there's no money in the future, of course, but there's got to be, being a history fan, I'd be like all over that, and Charlie, as we find out too, is a bit of a history buff. And I thought that would have been kind of a cool side story for her character to jump into, but I just had to bring that to the table because I'm just like, wait a minute, that's all we're going to mention. So, yeah. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into the next Orville shuttle mission here, talking about Kelly. All All right, we're going to talk about Adrianne a little bit here. Adrianne Palicki here. I've been following her career for a while, and I mentioned, of course, I was a huge fan of Friday Night Lights, where I first found out about her. Adrianne Palicki was born in Toledo, Ohio, to Nancy and Jeffrey Palicki. Her father is of Polish and Hungarian descent, and her mom is French, English, and German ancestry. Adrianne graduated from Whittemore High School. She did not take the stage in her first play until she was a sophomore in high school. While in high school, she played basketball and ran track. She was a runner-up for Homecoming Queen. She was a series regular on the first 3 seasons of NBC drama series Friday Night Lights. She has since co-starred in the films Legion in 2010, Red Dawn, the remake, in 2012, and G.I. Joe Retaliation in 2013. One of my favorites of her. That's her in the red dress, by the way, from that there. A little bit of trivia about her. She has an older brother, Eric, who is a comic book writer. They wrote the first issue of the comic book No Angel together with Ari Sharzad and Jean-Paul Zuska and Jim Campbell for the comic book publisher Black Mass Studios. On July 22nd, 2019, she filed for divorce from her husband of 2 months, Scott Grimes. On July 22, 2020, she filed for divorce from Grimes for the second time. So they tried it again, didn't work out.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
Yeah, she starred in 3 different productions featuring members of DC Comics Justice League. She played the fellow Krypton native and ally of Clark Kent Superman in an episode of Smallville 2001. She played a villain in the aborted Aquaman series, and she played Diana Prince Wonder Woman in a 2011 pilot that was not picked up for a series. I just wanted to pause there for a minute. I remember this is big news. They were looking to have a Wonder Woman TV series, and she filmed the pilot for this. And you can find this online, and you can find it on bootleg DVD copies in almost every convention that sells a bunch of DVDs and Blu-rays. So I just want to let you know. She worked at Togo's as a sandwich maker when she first got to Los Angeles, and she was ranked number 79 on Maxim's magazine Hot 100 of the 2007 list.
Oh,
so there we go. Yes, I wanted to ask you guys: are you familiar with Adrianne's earlier pre-Orville work, Alyssa?
I really am not. I have watched a little bit of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. since watching Orville.
Mm-hmm.
I knew when I saw her in the Orville that she looked familiar, and I think it's because I have been a Marvel fan for a while, and I hadn't seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I knew who Mockingbird was. And when it came out with the cast list and who was going to play Mockingbird, I looked at her picture and I said, that is a perfect casting because I know what the comic book character is supposed to look like. And I thought she looks exactly like Mockingbird, but I never did watch the show. And then when she showed up on the Orville, I was like, I feel like I've seen her before. And I looked her up and she was Mockingbird on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I have watched a little bit of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after, but yeah, that's about it. But I like Kelly better than Bobby, although Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., she's very good in that one as well.
I'm a big G.I. Joe fan, and so I was happy to see her in the second G.I. Joe movie. But also one of my favorite franchises is John Wick, and she was in the first John Wick movie as a fellow assassin, and she was fantastic in it. Amy, were you familiar with Adrianne's earlier works at all?
Yeah, no, not at all. And I remember watching Friday Night Lights because it started while I was actually living in Texas for a short stint. And boy, that rang true. I definitely experienced high school football in Texas, and they do take it serious.
So you know how important it is there.
Oh, I do. I do.
Yeah, she's doing. She did a guest spot. I can't remember the name of the show, but it stars. Oh, gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the guy. The guy that played Pacey in what was it? Dawson's Creek. I'm forgetting that name's actor, but he plays a doctor on a boat, a cruise ship, and Adrianne had I think a 2-episode arc in that, so I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, well, let's get into a little bit of character discussion for Commander Kelly Grayson here, and as we have 3 main questions here, I'm going to throw a funny one in a little bit later, guys. But the first question I have here is how their character moments tie into the Orville universe as a whole. Now, before we get into the personal discussions, because that's going to be the second question, I think some important stuff happened regarding tomorrow that changed a lot. So I want to start with you, Alyssa, on how Commander Kelly Grayson's character ties into the Orville universe, good or bad.
Well, obviously, in universe, if it weren't for Kelly, none of this would have happened. If she and Ed had not divorced, then Ed wouldn't have gone into his spiral. She wouldn't have gotten him the ship. She wouldn't be his first officer. Gordon wouldn't be there. Claire wouldn't be there. So it all does start with Kelly. And then there are other plot lines that she then becomes so intertwined with, like Topa, from the beginning till the end with Topa, with that planet that she accidentally starts a religion. Even things like Talea, Kelly and Talea have a rivalry that's very clear that they absolutely hate each other. And yeah, it feels like Kelly is very involved with pretty much every plot. She's the one who got John promoted. She is the one. But on the other hand, she's also the one who kind of told Gordon, I don't know, the command is for you. So she's kind of an advisor and a counselor to everybody. So yeah, she pretty much has a hand in almost every storyline. And even with the Genesi, when the Genesi show up, she's the one that gets them to consider an alliance. And she's the one in the Kalon War that goes to get the Krill and brings them for a potential alliance. So
Alyssa's on a roll here. I love it.
I know.
she's the one I pay the most attention to. Even though I love all of them and I love the show. But yeah, I tend to follow Kelly's storylines. But yeah, it sounds like she kind of makes or breaks alliances a lot of the time.
What about you, Amy?
Wow. Yeah, you are right, Alyssa. She is like this pivotal character in this Orville universe. I mean, I was just thinking, she went and talked to the admiral and, sort of got Ed the job and he got all bent out of shape out of that. But, and that sort of gets things going. She is definitely a force for good in the Orville universe.
Yeah. Alyssa, you nailed it.
Yep.
I couldn't have said it better because, I think that they got the right actress for this character. Adrianne is so talented and she just brings it in. And I've seen a lot of her roles, and I got to tell you, this is my favorite of hers. I'd like to, it's funny too. I know there's some stuff I haven't seen of hers as well, but when it comes to the character of Kelly, I feel like also too, and I'm speculating here, but I also feel too that she's someone that people look up to as a commander, as someone that could, because I feel like she could take over command and she could probably get her own ship, and we can speculate on that in a moment. But I feel like overall she has a good way of leading people, and I feel too that she can size up a moment, and that's made a big difference throughout the storylines as well of doing things, and not to mention just a badass, like, especially during All the World Is a Birthday Cake, when that her and Borda sharing a birthday makes them prisoners, and how she's can take care of herself and just be badass too. So that's one of the things I love about that. So, okay, let's go ahead and talk about Kelly and the relationship to the rest of the Orville crew. Obviously, we know that she is the ex-wife of Ed, and we've talked a lot about her with Topa. But I was wondering, you covered the gambit there a little bit, Alyssa, but I want you to kind of talk more about the personal side of things, because I feel like when it comes to having a room full of girl talk, she's there to lead the group, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, I noticed that throughout the show. Obviously, we know about her relationship with Ed and Topa and Bordas, but she's generally the one I find that builds people up. She sees the potential in everyone and knows what they can do, even if they don't believe that they can do it. So that's mostly Ed and John, but she pushes them and she pushes everyone, and she pushes Topa because she can see what they can be. And she's very good at encouraging people to be the best that they can be. She also seems to be the one that if somebody is having a problem, she will go and find them and try and say something to make it better or encourage them. Like when Gordon had the issue with Laura and he's in his quarters, like, upset about that, and she goes to find him and encourage him and tell him, about not messing with somebody's life, or you're going to change, the way that it turns out, and uses her own life as an example. So yeah, she's usually the one who looks out for everybody and is the one that people can go to if they want to talk. So yeah, I like that about her.
That's a good call. What about you, Amy? Personal interactions with the crew.
Yeah, I really like her and Claire's friendship. When Claire's going through that with Isaac, like she's there consoling her and listening and giving her basically the idea to ask Isaac to, get his emotions. Like that's a difficult discussion, and can you ask that of a partner? And she says, yes, you can. Like I think her relationship IQ is very high. You can see that with her and how she deals with Ed currently, from episode 1, when they get captured and they're thrown back into their old life of, when they first got married or whatever. And they're in this zoo and they're like, oh yeah, I remember we were good. Like they have fond memories, and then things progress and it's like, oh yeah, you're chewing your cereal loudly. Like, stop it. And, and then Ed's always like, oh, maybe we could try. And she's very compassionate. She doesn't like, what? You're stupid. Why would you want to try that again? She listens to him because she cares about him. Like that takes maturity to continue to have a friendship with an ex. And all the way through the show, she's like, well, no, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. And I love that for her. And it's just goes to show like her relationship with the crew is so strong because I think of this relationship IQ that she has. She's very mature.
That's a good way to put it, a relationship IQ, because, I remember there was times I was rooting for them to possibly get back together, her and Ed, and there's times like, no, I don't want it to happen.
Yeah.
And then we had the relationship for several episodes with Cassius, and she ended up breaking up with him. And I could feel that she was feeling like, we got kind of two different directions here, and I think she's happy with the trajectory of her career as well, and the people that she's working with and such. So yeah, you guys have said it better than I had, and I don't want to repeat what you guys are saying, but yeah, definitely, she has an effect on all of the crew in certain ways, and I think that dichotomy is really, really nice there. Now, before I ask the final question about where would you like to see the future story arc go, I got to ask you guys this: is Kelly a functioning alcoholic? I mean, we know about her past, but it seems like she's the first one. Like, okay, we need, like, when girl talks ready to start, she's like, let me get a drink first.
Yep. Where's that wine?
Yeah, where's the wine? I just want to get your guys' thoughts on this because I think she is. What do you think, Alyssa?
I don't know. She's working with her ex-husband, so there's that too.
What do you think, Amy?
Listen, if she's a functioning alcoholic, then so am I.
I had to put it out there.
Yes.
Okay. Final question before we wrap things up here. If we had more episodes of this character, of course, Kelly Grayson, and there's rumors we're going to get a 4th season, we don't know. And there's also rumors out there that Adrianne might not return. So I, keep that in mind as well. Where would you like to see this story arc of hers go? Amy, we normally don't go with you first. Do you want to go first? Do you want to wait? You want to wait? Okay.
Yeah, I need to wait.
Okay. Alyssa, where would you like to see Kelly Grayson's character go if we do get to see more of her?
Well, first of all, I want to see her at all. So that in itself would be great. But I think that she would do very well as a captain, possibly on another ship, which would be a good way of whether she comes back or not dealing with that, or maybe she comes back periodically as the captain of another ship. If she did that, that would also mean that there might be a road open for her and Ed to get back together, possibly. you can see throughout the show, even though like she says she's fine with where she is, she doesn't want to jeopardize Ed's command or her own. She doesn't want to put either of them in a position where they might have to choose each other or what they have to do. But if they're captains on other ships, then maybe that might be something that they would be open to. They were holding hands in the last episode, the last time we saw them. And so you can kind of see throughout the show that she kind of would like to pursue it, but she's making herself say no. So that might be something interesting to see. I would like to see what happens with Topa. Does Kelly continue to mentor her? Does she continue to mentor Lysella? The people that, we're looking up to her at the end of season 3. So
right.
Yeah, that would be kind of where I'd like to see her go.
If we do get a 4th season and Adrianne doesn't want to come back, I do see Seth saying, look, at least let me get you in an episode and we'll write you off where you command your own ship or something like that. I could see that happening. So her character is still out there. But, you brought something up, Alyssa, that made me think, like, I kind of want to know. I'm going back to the episode that we're going to discuss regarding Ed, where Ed finds out that he's a father. And in the beginning of is it the Topa episode where he's writing a letter to his daughter?
Yeah.
And there's that little nice moment where Kelly goes, you still surprise me,
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of leads you to, like, if they were to work things out, but maybe from a distance where she has her own starship and stuff. And, I would like to see them have some more scenes together. I don't, maybe Kelly's character, she does go off and have her own starship because she deserves one. Let's be honest, guys. She needs to be the captain of her own starship. And I would love to see that story in one way or another explored. And I would love for her to maybe be like a stepmom to the little baby Krill girl, or something like that. I would just, because I think that with Ed now being a father, I'll get into that more later in the next episode. I think that would affect Kelly and wanting to still be part of his life as well. I am basing my opinion on the fact that there's rumors that she might not return, but we don't know. Maybe she does. And if she does, I would like to see somewhere within that season, her given command of a ship or something like that. Because her character definitely deserves to. And I think that would be important, especially with whatever future conflict that we have. The cool thing about the Orville is they always go back and refer to stuff they've mentioned before. The planet where Kelly started the religion, does that continue forward? I don't know. But I see so much potential for it. It's hard. I could spend a whole episode discussing just her alone. It's easier for me to see all the options with how Adrianne would portray that character, and do we see the younger Kelly come back? It's interesting. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, Amy, do we give you anything to consider regarding the future of Kelly? What would you like to see?
Yes. So, not that I want to see this, but since you said that her coming back is iffy, and of course, love to see her get a captain. And Alyssa, you're absolutely right. That separation could allow for much more possibilities between her and Ed. And she would make, I think she would make a great captain. She's a fabulous first officer. And I don't want to be too grim, but I feel that if we are losing Adrianne Palicki, that her death could be a major comeback of, okay, how does the crew react? Her death, I want it to be meaningful. The sacrifice brought 2 warring Krill and the Union together. Like, it could be something magnificent. And then going through each of the characters, like saying how she impacted their life. That could be also. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I don't want her dead, but I wouldn't mind seeing her life end with something extremely meaningful.
I saw Alyssa's reaction to.
I know. I'm like, okay,
she's like, no, no, we don't want a dead Kelly. So yeah. All right, guys. Well done. This is episode 216 Union Federation, and we're doing the Orville crew profile. And I just want to get your final thoughts on Kelly. Alyssa, let's start with you.
Yeah, so when I first started watching the Orville, I hated her. She was the only one that I didn't like because of that first storyline. And I was like, I think I could like this show. I think I would like all of these characters, but not that one. And then as the show went on, I started liking her kind of against my will. Like she made me like her, and it was kind of funny. At first, I felt bad for her because you could see that she felt remorse, and then she would stick up for Ed. She was probably the most loyal out of the crew. And then I think it was the episode where she ended up getting tortured that I kind of thought there's something else going on with this relationship. Like, how in the world could she be so strong as to take that and not give the information and then just kind of cheat on a whim? And then that other episode with the pheromones came up. So I really don't think that she actually cheated. I don't think that she consented to that. But I was liking her even before that revelation was made. I was thinking people make mistakes. She made a big one. She's doing everything that she possibly can to atone for it. But yeah, as the show went on, I kind of found that she exhibits qualities that I personally connect with, especially it's not common now, I don't think, that we see a female leader character that shows the qualities that she does. A lot of the time, like, I'm a big Marvel fan, but a lot of the time we see these characters who are loners, or they're like, I can do everything myself. I don't need any help. I want to be alone. And her biggest fear is being away from people, is being isolated. And I connect with that. She reaches out to people. She's compassionate. She's not afraid to be the warm, supporting person while still being strong and standing up for herself and others. So yeah, I think all around she's a really good character who's very inspirational.
It's funny how you didn't like her at first, and I'm trying to remember that far back. I'm like, did I feel that way? I can't remember. Amy, your final thoughts on Commander Grayson?
Well, just first, thank you, Alyssa. Your comments about her have just been spot on. Absolutely agree. I love what you say and like how you remember so much about her. I'm like, oh yeah, she did do that. Oh yeah. So
I have rewatched quite a bit since I watched the show first. So
yes. And yeah, I was telling Kevin at the top, like, it's been so fun seeing the episodes, and it's like, oh, that connects with this. And yeah, like watching Tale of Two Topas and then have Clyden bring up the honorable mention, that one. What's the name of that episode?
Mad Idolatry.
Mad Idolatry. So and yeah, like her input with Lamar. And I was gonna ask, how was her input with Gordon
when he went to take the command test?
That's right.
And
yeah.
But she realized he was doing it to get girls.
Yeah. She saw through that. Again, making her an excellent first officer. And she takes her role, her job, very seriously, especially as she was, telling with Topa, and that her work ethic only makes her more endearing, and why the crew appreciates her, because they feel they can trust her that she's going to do the right thing. And like I said at the top, I just feel she is this foundational character where the allows the others in the crew to be crazy at time, and Ed can be wishy-washy, and he can be funny and flippant, but then still rely on her to get the best advice, to do the right thing. And I agree with you. She has that quality of, it's okay to be warm, and warmth is strength. And that should be celebrated, and we get to see that in her.
Couldn't have said it better, guys. Well done. Well done. All right, this is a Union Federation podcast, and we have 2 more episodes left of this limited 10-episode series discussing the Orville crew members. And the next one is Ed Mercer himself, Captain Ed Mercer, Seth MacFarlane, for episode 217. Let's go ahead and wrap things up here, guys. This is the Fandom Podcast Network, and please hit the QR code there if you're watching YouTube. Take us to our website, support us there as well. And Amy, you are the founder of the BQN. Let us know what's going on at the BQN and how we can get a hold of you.
Well, we are doing some fun things over on BQN. We're wrapping up our third season of The View Screen. That's our YouTube show. So check us out there, BQN Podcasts. And we are introducing Galaxy Classes coming back. Kevin, I know you were listening to that back
Yeah.
then. So that one's going to be coming back. So that's our exciting news over at BQN. You can find all of our shows, BQN Podcasts. Just search wherever you find your podcasts. And I am in our Orville Facebook group. And you can find me on Blue Sky at Counselor Amy.
Awesome. And Alyssa, first of all, thank you again for joining us. How can we get a hold of you?
I am on Instagram at Space Girl Cosplay, and I post a bunch of cosplay pictures there. I have more from Stella Nova Resort and any convention that I go to doing Orville. And it's a lot of fun, so check it out.
Awesome. And I did forget to mention before I tell you about myself here, the episodes are going to be covering for Ed Mercer. I almost forgot to mention that. Yes, please guess. Yes, please guess.
Is it 3? Is it 2 and an honorable mention?
Yes, it's 2 and an honorable mention.
Okay. Well, I know you've mentioned this a couple of times, but I kind of figured anyway. Gently Falling Rain.
Yes, that's one of them.
Old Wounds, the first one?
No. Okay. That would have been a good one, though. Yeah.
Nothing Left on Earth Excepting Fishes.
Yes, that's going to be
my God.
And then I don't know what the other one is.
Nothing Left on Earth Excepting the Fishes and Gently Falling Rain are going to be the 2 main episodes we're going to be covering. And the honorable mention is Priya, because that was really the first episode that we got with Ed kind of trying to find some romance outside of what he was used to. And he also got to take advantage of his friendship with his co-star of a movie that his co-star was in. We'll get that's the one with Charlize Theron, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So make sure you guys check that out.
Nothing Left on Earth Excepting Fishes. I was talking to my sister and trying to figure out, I wonder what episodes they're going to pick for Ed, and she actually suggested that one, and I was like, I think you're right.
Oh my God.
Okay, you can find me, Kevin. You can find me, of course, on Facebook. I'm on all the socials, including Blue Sky, Spartan Phoenix, everything else. I'm Spartan_Phoenix. And please also check out the Union Federation itself. Union Federation podcast is also on. We have our own Facebook group, as Amy mentioned earlier. If you're a Star Trek and Orville fan, please check that out. You can also find Union Federation on X and also on Instagram. So there we go. And give us a shout out on TeePublic. Get your own Union Federation t-shirt there. I've got my Fandom Podcast Network t-shirt there. We've got logos for all of our shows on the network. And of course, this is the Union Federation discussing the Orville, and we just wrapped up Kelly Grayson. So stay tuned next episode for Ed Mercer. Alyssa, thank you so much for joining us again. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
All right. Amy, as always, thank you so much for counseling us through this this episode in this series. My name is Kevin, and on behalf, of course, Kyle, he'll be back. Hopefully, we'll see regarding his taxes there on Plant Taxium. And as we always say here, until next time, live long and prosper. And without a doubt, we are the weirdest ship in the fleet. We'll see you next time, guys.